All right, guys, welcome back. Ev Singleton Show. We're looking at, I guess, reviewing the trade deadline that just happened yesterday, and I'm going to kind of talk about some teams that I think, I guess we're bucketing them. Some teams that I think are winners of the deadline, and some teams that are just absolute losers of the deadline. I would say we can start with the losers, and then we can kind of end on the positive note. But yeah, let's jump right into it, guys. Second channel here. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let me know down below the #1 winning team at the deadline and the #1 losing team at the deadline. Want to see if we're all kind of on the same page here, because I think there's a clear-cut #1 loser and a clear-cut #1 winner. And I haven't really done too much research into like what other people are saying about this. So yeah, I want to know what people think in the comments down below. But the biggest loser here, you have to say the Minnesota Twins, right? They lost Duran, Jax, Colomb, or whatever his name is, Harrison Bader, Willie Castro, Ty France. I'm missing some here too, right? Carlos Correa going back to Houston. Bunch of guys there. They did end up, keeping Buxton, who was kind of rumored, keeping Joe Ryan. But realistically, I think the reason they didn't get rid of those guys is because the asking price was so high, right? And Buxton, did he even mention he's like, I'm not going to waive my trade clause or something like that? Did I say Willie Castro? That was another one that they lost too, right? So yeah, the Twins pretty much sold. I don't necessarily think they got back anything worth there, but I almost felt like the Twins made the decision and said, okay, hey, we're in limbo, right? We need to at least either reset in a couple of years or get way better right now. And they're looking at their guys, and even some of those names, the guys like Louis Varland, another one. As we talk about this, I'm probably going to remember, there's so many damn Twins names that got traded. But, Correa and Harrison Bader, Willie Castro, like some of these guys, it's like, yeah, they're really good players, but are they going to take us to the promised land? If not, let's offload them and kind of take a step back. And the Twins clearly did that, right? I don't think that they got back the return that they ended up giving up, but they're probably saying, hey, you know what? Let's bite the bullet, hit the reset button. Maybe in a couple of years with picks and prospects in this haul that you got in terms of no names for these guys, maybe they turn into something, right? The next team that I would say would be a loser is my Boston Red Sox. Like, I'm pretty annoyed with what they did. They went out there and got Matz. Great. They went out there and got Dustin May. Great. Neither one of those guys is going to make this team any different. And they're in a strong wild card race right now. And we'll talk about some of the winners, but a couple of those teams around them got a hell of a lot better. And they ended up trading the young kid that they got in the deal for Devers for Dustin May. So essentially you traded, you got Harrison. You got, obviously, Jordan Hicks and I forget the kid's name at this point, Till or whatever. You trade that for Dustin May, or you trade that for Devers, and then you trade part of that deal for Dustin May. It's just like, what are you doing, Red Sox, right? They seemed like they were in on the Joe Ryan trade talks, and then all of a sudden the Twins said, yeah, the Red Sox are nowhere near the asking price there. This team is just frugal. They have been forever, like very few and far between times they absolutely sign or trade or pay one of those big names. The ownership's been like that for so long. Us Red Sox fans know it, and we get annoyed by it, right? But I don't think Steven Matz or Dustin May, neither one of those guys are going to do anything for you. You know what I mean? Now, in terms of another loser, I would say, I guess I would say, a couple teams like the Tigers, the Reds, or even maybe the Cubs. And it's almost because all of those teams were hopefully, or rumors-wise, in on some of the bigger names to either add pitchers or add some of these, and they all kind of come up shy, right? That ultimately puts you in the losers bucket because they are all in a similar situation. Now, the Cubs had a chance to really take their stuff to the next level, right? Maybe they don't fall into the Red Sox, the Reds, the Tigers category or anything like that. But the Tigers, for sure, another team that, looking to add starters and what like that. And sure, they do a little bit, but not much offensive add. No bullpen add is what they needed. So, yeah, I would say the Tigers, the Reds, the Red Sox are all losers. I would throw the Cubs hat into the ring of a deadline loser, but obviously that team's very, very good that you're not necessarily going to sit there and be like, oh my God, like they blew it, right? Like the Red Sox may have blown it. The Red Sox may have kissed away. And again, I said pissed away, not kissed away. Their chances of making the playoffs because the teams surrounding them, whether it's the AL East, whether it's the wild card in the AL, those teams got better. So let's talk about some of the winners of the deadline here. We'll save our #1 for last, but yeah, I would say the Twins #1 loser, and we have a clear cut, in my opinion, #1 winner that we'll get to in a second. The Astros are a team that I do think was a big winner at the deadline. They get back Carlos Correa. Maybe that's not necessarily as big of a win as it may seem, because obviously the name kind of goes a long way and whatnot, but they got Urias, they got Jesus Sanchez from the Marlins. I think that they did a decent amount there, you know what I mean? Now they have a very good, starting core in terms of Valdez, Hunter Brown, right? And they also have a decent bullpen, so they didn't need to address those, and they have some injuries of guys coming back, so I think they kind of picked pieces and put them in and traded for them in spots in which they really did need. So I do like the idea of what the Astros did here, especially given their division and everything like that. Another team that I would say, was a big winner, and I think this is arguably you could put them up there, right? Would be the Padres. They add Mason Miller, obviously a really, really good reliever, but they also get Ryan O'Hearn, obviously a good bat, Ramon Laureano, both those guys from the Orioles. They get Freddie Furman, a catcher. They were kind of weak in that position. But ultimately, yeah, being able to add Mason Miller to the bullpen is going to be good. Now, they did trade one of their top prospects. I forgot the guy's name. It's like Leo DiCaprio or something like that. But ultimately, I still think that the Padres, a team that really needed something to switch and kind of turn and put the ignition on for them, they may have gone out there and done that. Like, O'Hearn is nothing to tip your nose at. Mason Miller, for sure. I mean, maybe he'll close for them, maybe not. For sure, a guy that you can also say is a little bit of a win. And then also, did they get JP Sears? Let me look that up. I think they got JP Sears as well, right? Yeah, so they got JP Sears, a left-handed pitcher. Is he great? No, but even in our normal videos all the time, we're kind of talking about how, like, yeah, he's serviceable, and he's a left-hand, and depending on if teams can hit lefties or righties, that could be pretty good. Another spot would be Philadelphia Phillies. They seem like they went out there and did their stuff, you know what I mean? I would say that getting, Harrison Bader could be a nice look and nice little ad for them, but they already have Zach Wheeler, Chris Sanchez, Suarez. That's obviously very good. But getting Duran, massive ad, you know what I mean? Because I would say that that's an ad that's going to impact more games than if you just got a starter that's going to help you win one every 5 games. You know what I mean? And he was a guy that a lot of teams were after. So I do think that is a pretty big spot there. I think he, could kind of not change this, but the Phillies bullpen has not been their strong suit. They have great starters, obviously a good offense. Like, that might be a really, really good ad. In terms of, I guess there's a few other honorable mentions, right? The Mets might be one of those honorable mentions. I even do think that the Athletics in the trade that we talked about, kind of giving up Mason Miller, getting that prospect's very, very good. The Yankees, I'm like right there. I don't know if it's trade deadline, because the Yankees made some moves prior to the deadline that were very, very good, right? Ahmed Rosario, they got McMahon, but they also end up getting David Bednar, which is going to be absolutely massive too. So I think that could be good, but I would say honorable mention. Where I think the team that literally made and the Rangers, I would also give a little bit. They got Merrill Kelly. That's a big get. I would say that that's a pretty good, honorable mention winner. The team that I think by far and away won the deadline and arguably maybe won like multiple freaking deadlines. If you kind of said, hey, who's won the deadline over years past? This is a great deadline. The Seattle Mariners. That's who I'm wondering if you guys are commenting Mariners the number 1 team. The Eugenio Suarez, everybody was in on him. They got him. Prior to that, they also got Josh freaking Naylor. Now, again, deadline move, maybe not. He was traded a couple days prior to. But man, oh man, you put 2 big bats in this lineup. You already have Cal Rayleigh. Like, this team, the issue that they had was, okay, what are we going to do? We need some power bats. We need more consistency, and we needed offense. Their offense started to get going, right? So that's good. But then all of a sudden they add these 2 guys, and it's like, holy crap. Like, this is a team that obviously in the wild card race, much like I mentioned, the Red Sox teams around them getting better, obviously in the wild card race, and they might have just like punched their ticket. I do think that I think they got Caleb Ferguson, right? He's nothing much. I would say that they have a decent bullpen, but they probably could have upgraded the bullpen. But the way that it looks like they ended up, directing themselves was saying, hey, we're going to go, our good starting pitcher, which they do have good starting pitching, and we're going to try and score as many runs as possible, and then let's see if we can give our bullpens cushion. But I do think Eugenio Suarez and, Josh Naylor, 2 of maybe the biggest names traded at the deadline, going to the same team. Are you kidding me? So, yeah, Mariners being the number 1 team that I think truly won the trade deadline. Now, what could have happened that might have changed things? Like, one thing would be if Joe Ryan went somewhere, right? Brian Buxton goes somewhere. Like, some of these names would be season long and honestly maybe a couple years long type trades that really shake things up. Like, just for example, if the Red Sox got Joe Ryan, I'm not sure what exactly they'd have to give up, but all of a sudden you have Crochet, Ryan, an offense that seems to be cooking and only getting better. That transcends the Red Sox into a new little stratosphere, right? And if we look at the wild card standings, I'm going to pop this up right now on the screen. If we look at the wild card standings, you probably wanted the Red Sox to go out there and freaking do something, right? You have the AL leaders right here, Detroit, Blue Jays, and Astros. The Tigers, again, a loser in the deadline because they were kind of this team that, I call them a middling team, but what I mean by that is I think that all these teams that are going to be in the playoffs, ultimately, I think kind of swept ahead of them. So, yeah, good thing that they're in a division that they are. The Blue Jays, they made a little bit of ads. Astros, absolutely. And then you have the Yankees, Red Sox, Mariners, and Rangers all in this sort of race right here, right? Got better. The Guardians, maybe not so much, but I wouldn't consider them loser, and I also would consider them in a different little spot than this. So you have Rangers got better, Mariners got better, Yankees got better. Red Sox arguably got worse. I say that as a Red Sox fan, but maybe not this year because they gave up prospects, but like that, they didn't really get all that much better unless Dustin May has a resurgence. Steven Matz returns to 2020 whatever Steven Matz. So this is what would worry me if I am a Red Sox fan, right? We go down to the NL. Phillies got better. Padres got better, right? Reds didn't necessarily do too much. The Cubs didn't necessarily do too much. But all of a sudden, you have the Mets got better. The Brewers, like I said, they could have done a little bit more. Dodgers are the Dodgers. So a lot of these teams in like peculiar situations in terms of they should have like kind of really went all in because this could be the year. They didn't do much. So there's a lot of guys still out there that, we heard about trades and everything like that, and they didn't end up moving, like Sandy Alcantara, another guy that I thought was going to move. In fact, a couple of those Marlins starters, right? So there are some guys that really could have shaken up the league and helped out some of these other teams, regardless if they had to give up, and they didn't get moved. So there were some what could be's for sure in this deadline, but there was a ton of great moves in this deadline. Had you checking Twitter and checking your phone all day long, which is awesome. That's kind of what you want out of a deadline. And what I love about basketball, what I love about baseball, I guess hockey to some degree, but realistically football is the only one that I would definitely throw out in this conversation, is the player-to-player trades. I freaking love that the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, those two specifically do these player-to-player trades all the time. And the NFL is more like a money situation or draft pick situation when they trade players. But I love watching the trade deadlines go down in the MLB and the NBA being like, player for player, holy crap, this guy traded for this guy, blockbuster, Luka for Anthony Davis, are you kidding me? So a lot of that yesterday, which is pretty damn cool. Baseball does kind of teeter towards the prospect for good player line, but still, you know what I mean. But ultimately, yeah, number one loser, Minnesota Twins. Drop a womp womp for them. Number one winner, pumping some crowd noise, the Seattle Mariners. I thought got a hell of a lot better this trade deadline. And I talked about the wild card race. They're not out of it in terms of, winning the division or anything like that. So I would not sit here and be like, oh, they won the wild card. No, I think they punched their ticket to the playoffs with those trades. They might be the 1 seed by the time this is all said and done. But guys, it's going to wrap it up for today's show. Again, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments, who do you think won and lost the deadline? I want the number one for each, but if you want to kind of throw in some honorable mentions like I did, go ahead and let me know. This is another edition of the Ev Singleton Show. It's been asked for a lot, and we're going to try and be more consistent with some of these mini podcasts, I guess. It's more of like a rant show at this point. So Ev Singleton Show, more like the rant show. Catch you guys in the next one. All right, peace out.